makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm a marriage and family therapist. I think about attachment all the time and safety. So if we're able to sort of predict and feel safer around these friends and neighbors, etc., you feel a little better about your life. But you also have something that's interesting. You talk about detachment in crowds. So maybe you feel safer when you're in a crowd, or you're less responsible. What is that?
Yeah, it's sort of well-known, well-documented now, finding in the behavioral sciences, the idea that we are very different people when we're in a crowd than when we're on our own, right? Unfortunately, you read about it all the time, or on the news all the time, the stories about the tourist who's visiting a city and passes out the subway car or dies on a subway and rides around for hours and no one actually intervenes or thinks to do anything or gets involved and looks into the situation. And it's really easy in those kinds of circumstances to indict everyone on that subway as being sort of chronically indifferent or apathetic people, or to say something about city dwellers everywhere, what's wrong with people in cities today, and why would they act this way? This wouldn't happen where I live. This would never happen in my neighborhood. And the times we hear that, the phrase is, this would never happen in my neighborhood, this wouldn't happen where I live, it seems like that's a pretty common, ubiquitous phrase that you hear in a variety of negative events in the news. And so this confidence that we have that, well, I live with good people, and good people are going to behave in a good way, again, is sort of oversimplification. It turns out that everyone, for that matter, you and me included, we behave very differently in a crowd, and when we're in a group of people, we are less likely to get involved in the affairs of others around us for a variety of different reasons that I talk about in the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, you use a funny example. You're just for listeners to understand, Sam Sommers is a professor at Tufts, and he was, in fact, Student Senate Professor of the Year in 2009, so you're a very popular guy on campus, apparently. And one thing you do is you throw your papers on the ground, and up behind you on the slideshow is Good Behavior Part 1.
Yeah, I often do this demonstration. It's right, like on the screen, these big letters, it says helping behavior.
Oh, helping behavior.
It's the topic for that day's lecture, and I'm getting ready for lecture, and have a stack of papers and organizing or whatever, and I've gotten pretty good over the years at dropping them in a big scatter pattern in front of the room, and it's a big classroom. It's 150 seats, and what happens when you do something like that in front of a group of people? They sit there and they watch. So you get down, wind up getting down on all fours, taking these things off my hands and knees, organizing these papers again with this big phrase, helping behavior, on the screen, and they sit and watch it. It's not that they're not bad kids, they're not bad people. These are actually, for the most part, very civic-minded individuals, and these young students who are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. But in a group, there's that it's almost this inertia of staying in your seat and expecting to be part of a passive audience, not involved in any way in what's going on. And so it's a really powerful force, this idea of having other people around you like that.
So what can we do to be more open to notice this, to maybe change crowds, change the way, rather you talk about inertia, and then you talk about a guy named Cameron Hughes who actually changes crowds to a different direction. How does that happen?
Yeah, it's been a good, really interesting, really fun interview with Cameron in the book. Cameron Hughes is, and you can look him up online, he's a professional sports fan, where you see him talked about as a super fan, and he's a guy who, maybe people see him on YouTube, maybe, he's dancing in the stadium aisles at the U.S. Open in the tennis tournament, or for that matter, at the Olympics, or any variety of NBA and NHL games. He gets paid by sports teams to come and do his ridiculous dancing and chanting and getting the crowd, gets the crowd all riled up. And so the book is really about the ways in which we can become more sensitive to this influence of situations, this power of context in a variety of different domains. And so how we can get better at changing people's behavior if we work in a profession or a field where that's something that's important to us. Certainly how we can learn to appreciate the power of context and become better at understanding and predicting the behavior of other people around us, which frankly I think all of us in pretty much any profession and certainly in our personal lives can benefit from. And that's really the objective of the book in many respects, is to help readers become more effective people, more effective at, again, being able to really understand human nature and to be able to understand and predict the behavior and the thoughts of people around us.
Well, okay, so I'm going to move this then to a discussion of Newtown, and this is the town that looks like it's out of a Christmas card. It is the prettiest little New England town you can imagine, and I'm sure every single person who ever moved there or lived there thought this could never happen in our neighborhood, and I feel so safe here. So just give me what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunately fairly common sort of refrain that you hear in these kinds of stories, that this is a community where good people and bad people. And talking about these kinds of events in terms of, well, we had an evil person, this is an evil person, and evil visited us on that day. There are times where I feel like that at some level is, I don't want to say the easy way out, but somewhat of a cop-out to talk about issues like, well, whether we're talking about terrible events like this, horrific events like this, or even just fraud and unethical and problematic behavior more generally, this whole bad apples idea that evil visited this town, or these atrocities or this fraud or this crime is a result of bad apples, bad aberrant personalities that we can sort of identify. That, I think, in many respects, is an easier way out. It's a combat that gets us out of some of the more important discussions about whether it's about mental health, whether it's about gun control, whether it's about corporate climate, if we're talking about unethical behavior and fraud more generally. So I do think we, even in times of, maybe especially in times of tragedy and horrific acts like this, maybe grab on even stronger than ever to these really internal, intrinsic, personality-based explanations for human behavior.
Well, this is why I found your book so important today. Right now, I think you can really affect the discussion of what's going on out there, and I do want people to think about it, which is what each one of us can do to change, to make change to the way we think and what we do, and take the steps and innovate and make this community, society, our country a safer place. And I just give me a couple of little last words of what each one of us can do, just to make a step in the right direction here.
Sure. I mean, I think, again, the book I've written here, and we're touching, understandably, given the topics of the day, we're touching on a lot of the sort of darker or negative, the darker sides of humanity and human nature. And the book touches on those, and also has chapters on love and relationships and sort of the brighter, more optimistic side of human nature, too. But for that whole spectrum, that whole continuum, really what the book is about is empowering people to do a better job at taking a step back and being objective observers of the world around us, and using that ability to predict other people's behavior and to understand when other people are trying to shape our behavior, and using those abilities to become more effective people in a variety of interpersonal as well as professional domains. So it's really about doing a better job of reading people and not making that knee-jerk sort of emotional step that we often do to jump to conclusions, whether we're interacting with our boss, the coworkers you mentioned, the morning commuters, the other drivers, or the customer service representative, really to sort of be more effective human beings in navigating that social universe around us. That's really the objective of the book.
I like it. Well, it's a really good message, and I do think we all need to be empowered. We can make change. Newtown does not have to happen again. And please, everybody, read this book. Find it. Situations Matter by Sam Sommers. And Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show with me today.
Sure thing. Thanks again for having me.
Okay. Bye.